If we're saved by grace, can we now lie, steal, and break the Sabbath? You say we're saved by grace and not under the law. Fine. Then let's ask the real question. Does grace give us permission to lie, to steal, to commit adultery, to dishonor our parents? Then why do so many act like it gives us the right to break the Sabbath? If grace erases God's commandments, then sin no longer exists. But if sin still exists, then so does God's law. Grace never nullifies the law. Romans 6:1 cuts straight to the heart. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin, that grace may abound? God forbid. Paul doesn't whisper. He shouts. Grace is not a license to sin. It's the power to overcome it. And what is sin? 1 John 3:4. Sin is the transgression of the law. So let's break it down. If grace removes the law, then sin is gone. If sin is gone, then there's nothing to repent of. If there's nothing to repent of, then why did Jesus die? You can't separate grace from law. They're two sides of the same coin. Grace forgives your past. The law defines your future. Selective obedience is still disobedience. Let's play it out. Would you tell a new believer that because of grace they can murder now? Of course not. Would you say they can cheat on their spouse because Christ fulfilled the law? You'd be outraged. So why, when we get to the fourth commandment, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, suddenly grace becomes an excuse to disobey? That's not Christianity. That's convenient hypocrisy. God never gave us permission to pick and choose which commandments are relevant. He wrote 10, not 9. The cross didn't cancel the commandments. Jesus didn't die so you could sin more. He died to save you from sin. In Matthew 5:17 he declared, "Think not that I am come to destroy the law, but to fulfill." He didn't come to erase the commandments. He came to embody them. And the Sabbath wasn't some Jewish relic. It was established at creation, long before Abraham, Moses, or Israel. Genesis 2:2-3. God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it. Not the first day, not any day, the seventh. So why, Pastor, do you preach grace, but trample the only command that begins with remember? The false grace gospel exposed. Modern Christianity has sold us a sugar-coated lie, that obedience is bondage and grace is lawlessness. But Titus 2:11-12 exposes the truth. The grace of God teaches us that denying ungodliness, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present world. Grace doesn't excuse disobedience. It empowers obedience. To say grace cancels the law is to spit on the cross, because Christ died to uphold God's justice, not abolish it. Would you thank a fireman for saving you from a blaze and then run back into the flames? That's what happens when we use grace to justify breaking God's law. The final challenge. To the priest who teaches tradition over truth, who gave you the authority to cancel one of God's 10? To the pastor who tells people the Sabbath was nailed to the cross, why would God write it in stone with his own finger, only to erase it later? To the imam who claims law matters more than grace, why not see that both are eternal when rightly understood? And to the skeptic who laughs at it all, if there's no law, then there's no judgment. And if there's no judgment, then why fear God at all? Conclusion. Yes, we are saved by grace. But no, grace does not make it acceptable to lie, steal, murder, or break the Sabbath. The cross of Christ didn't remove the law. It revealed how serious breaking it really is. It cost heaven's greatest treasure. So, if you've truly been touched by grace, you will rise, not to rebellion, but to obedience born of love. The saints of Revelation 14:12 are defined by two things: the faith of Jesus and obedience to God's commandments. Don't let false grace rob you of the truth. Because in the end, grace doesn't break the law, it brings you back to it. It brings you